Hello, chat. For those of you who are saying it's 10 o'clock, guys, like, give me literally, it takes like time for it to literally start up. But hi, yes, I'm here. Strixhaven. Curriculum of Chaos. Books are in. Let's talk about it. Now, I do have a piece of promo material that comes with the books when you get them from Wizards. But it's pretty much the same stuff you'd read, but it does remind us that it's releasing on December 7th. So that's not this coming week, but the following week on the Tuesday, the book should be in wherever you can go out to get it. I will also remind folks that as I'm currently doing with the Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, which you can also still enter that giveaway, I will be giving away copies of Strixhaven as well, as I typically do. A couple of these alt art covers, because I do think these are really nice. These look really good. I'm not actually a really big fan of this cover at all. I really don't like it at all. But I think this one looks really nice. Okay. Couple of housekeeping things up front. 3, I guess, right? All right. First of all, I have music playing at very low levels. I don't even know if you can hear it. Let me know if you can. If it's too overpowering and you can't hear me, please sound off in the chat. That will let me know. 2, slow mode is enabled. I might take it off if things start to calm down, but usually the chat goes so crazy fast that I can't actually keep up with it, so I put slow mode on to prevent spamming of messages. 3, I will try and answer everyone's questions in the order that they arrive in the chat. However, I will, for folks who do decide, you don't have to, do not feel obligated to super chat. If folks do super chat a specific question, I will try to go jump to that question and answer it immediately before I go back to the list and try to go down through it. 4, Stamp Champs. Okay, we've talked about these folks. They're the unsung heroes, and they should be sung about, honestly. So I would request one person, several people, however you want to go about doing it, if possible, as I go through and answer questions. If you can somewhere denote a timestamp that you keep and then shoot to me afterwards, comment it on the video when it's done, and then we can add that so then any folks watching this later on YouTube, or you if you want to go back and look at it, know, hey, if someone asked about the race, the Owlin race, where is it? Oh, it's at timestamp 5 minutes, 30 seconds, whatever the case may be, okay? That's where we stand right now, okay? So, that being said, I will try and answer all of the questions you have. I have done a very cursory look through the book. I have not read every single page. So we're going to start at the top, and we'll work our way down. Do Merfolk wizards have stats or lore mentioned in the Strixhaven book? If I had an index, I could easily tell you if Merfolk wizards are mentioned. I can tell you that flipping through the monster section, I do not believe there is a specific Merfolk in here, like listed as a specific stat block. That being said, there may be Merfolk. I'm sure there are. There's a variety of other Magic the Gathering races. I saw Loxodon, I think, in here as well. Super curious. All right, we're diving right in. Super curious about the new spells that are in the spellbook. I heard each school has their own spell. Yes, there are 5 schools, and there are 5 new spells in the book. We're going to start there, folks. We're getting you the meaty stuff right out the gate. This is the questions you want answered. 5 new spells. They are in Chapter 2, I believe. Yeah, Chapter 2 is Character Options. Spells Descriptions. Okay, so we have one first-level spell, which is called Silvery Barbs, and that is for Bard, Sorcerer, and Wizard. The rest are all second-level spells. One is called, and Silvery Barbs is an enchantment spell. The next one is Borrowed Knowledge. That is a divination spell. It is available to the Bard, Cleric, Warlock, and Wizard. After that is Kinetic Jaunt, which is a transmutation spell. That is for Artificer, Bard, Sorcerer, Wizard. After that is Vortex Warp, a conjuration spell for Artificer, Sorcerer, Wizard. And lastly is Wither and Bloom, a excuse me, a necromancy spell for druid, sorcerer, and wizard. So that being said, let's talk about the first spell. So first on the list is Borrowed Knowledge. It is an action, has a range of self, it variable somatic material components, and the material component is a book that costs at least 25 gold pieces. It is non-concentration for an hour. Choose one skill with which you lack proficiency. For the duration, that unconcentration or lack of concentration for an hour, you are proficient in that skill. It ends early if you cast it again. Not the best spell, a super useful spell. You will not be upset to have that. It is also available to Bard, Cleric, Warlock, and Wizard. Very nice to see that available on the Cleric, which is something I would not have thought normally. Interesting that it's not on the Sorcerer. Or Artificer also felt very appropriate for that spell. But yeah, just giving you proficiency in a skill you didn't have proficiency with for an hour is pretty nice. Okay, next up is Kinetic Jaunt, which is a bonus action, range of self, only somatic components, and concentration up to a minute. You magically empower yourself and give yourself the following benefits for that 1 minute concentration. Increase your walking speed by 10 feet. I should also say you magically empower your movement with dance-like steps. It's supposed to be a jaunt, you know. Increase your walking speed by 10 feet. Don't provoke attacks of opportunity. And you can move through the space of another creature, and it doesn't count as difficult terrain. But if you end your turn in a creature's space, you're shunted out and take a d8 force damage. But that's pretty solid, right? That's like a, Expeditious Retreat, I think, gives you an extra 10 feet of movement. But it also makes it so it doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity, and you can move through other creatures' space without any other limitations. That almost makes the mobile spell, not 100%, but it almost makes the mobile spell pointless, or mobile feat rather, because that's pretty much giving you a lot of the benefits of mobile for free, or for the cost of a second level spell slot. And that is Artificer, Bard, Sorcerer, Wizard. If you could find a way to get this on something that's more melee oriented, I mean, it has its benefits on a non-melee character for sure to get out of a situation, but to be able to dance around combat, it is a transmutation spell, and in theory it's available to the wizard, so depending on what spells your DM allows, this could be something your Arcane Trickster gets access to. Excuse me, Silvery Barbs. This is the first level spell. Now this is a reaction-based spell, and I do like that we have spells that cover a variety of different action economy. It's nice to see, especially if we're only going to get 5. One reaction, which you take when a creature you can see within 60 feet of you succeeds on an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. Now it doesn't have to be it could be an allied creature or an enemy creature, but as long as they succeed on an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, and they're within 60 feet, you can use this spell, which is you magically distract the triggering creature, so probably you'd want to use this on an enemy. The triggering creature must re-roll the d20 they just rolled and use the lower roll. So, a point effect is when they succeed on an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. So it's not going to be wasted. It's not one of those before the thing is determined. It's when they have succeeded, and you say, you know what, no, I want you to roll another d20 and use the lower roll. Now, if your roll happened to be higher, or their second roll is higher, it doesn't really matter. And again, it was a success no matter what. So you're hoping to roll low, or they roll low enough on the second roll to negate that. But there's more. You can then choose a different creature you can see within range, which can be yourself, and you have advantage on the next attack roll, ability check, or saving throw you make within 1 minute. A creature can only be empowered by one of these spells at a time. This spell is so much power for a level 1 spell. Not only does it effectively have the potential as a reaction spell to essentially grant almost disadvantage to a creature, not necessarily disadvantage, but forcing them to make a secondary roll when they have already succeeded, possibly turning that success into a miss. It also gives you or an ally advantage on your next roll within a minute. Reminder, this is non-concentration, and you can apply this to multiple people. So if you have a party of people with Silvery Barbs, you can just ping this all around, and everybody can have advantage on the next thing they make within a minute. And again, Silvery Barbs is available to Bard, Sorcerer, and Wizard. Very awesome to see that on a Bard. That is really, really good. Very bard-like. Next one up is Vortex Warp, which is 1 action, range of 90 feet, verbal somatic components, and it is an instantaneous duration as well. Choose a target you can see within range. The target must succeed on a Constitution saving throw, or you teleport the target to an unoccupied space of your choice within range. Reminder, this range is 90 feet, so pick a creature within 90 feet and teleport them somewhere within 90 feet. However, the chosen space must be on a surface or in a liquid that can support the target without the target having to squeeze. At higher levels, if you cast this to 3rd level or higher, the range of the spell increases by 90 feet for each slot above 2nd level. This is, I think, possibly the first time we have seen a sort of potential combat-based teleportation where you can teleport someone against their will, which is not normally something we have. We have a lot of things like teleportation, Dimension Door, Misty Step, Thunder Step, whatnot, but we don't have one. This Vortex Warp is literally, I'm going to take you from here, I'm going to move you over here. Now, it does say that the surface or liquid has to be able to support them without having them have to squeeze, meaning it can't be something smaller so they're squeezing into, but you could effectively pick up this creature and drop them in water. You can drop them on you can't drop them in the air, right? That's the thing. It's on a surface. So you could drop them on thin ice, on a surface that a party member has created via magic that they can then drop on their turn so they fall. There are a lot of ways you can play around with this, and the fact that upcasting it allows you to extend the range also can basically just totally alter combat. You're fighting the big bad evil guy, and you just pop them 90 feet, 120 feet, 150 feet away, and then everybody just open fires, and if they want to get to the party, they have to get close. And that is available to Artificer, Sorcerer, and Wizard. And lastly, the appropriately named Wither and Bloom is a necromancy spell. An action requires verbal somatic material components, but no costly ones. You invoke both death and life, another very powerful spell. Invoke both death and life upon a 10-foot radius sphere centered on a point within range, which again is 60 feet. Each creature of your choice in that area must make a Constitution saving throw, taking 2d6 necrotic damage on a failed save or half on a success. Non-magical vegetation in the area withers. In addition, one creature of your choice in the area can spend and roll one of its unspent hit die and regain a number of hit points equal to the roll plus your spellcasting ability modifier. This can be cast at higher levels. The damage increases by a d6 for each slot above 2nd level, and the number of hit dice that can be spent and added to the healing roll increases by each 1 for each slot above 2nd. This is available to druids, sorcerers, and wizards. So again, this is a 10-foot radius AoE that does necrotic damage to only creatures that you decide, and they take half damage on a success. And in addition to all of that, you can also use it to heal somebody, a creature of your choice, which I guess in theory could be you. It doesn't say it could be, but it doesn't say it can't be. I guess it is a 2nd level spell, and 2d6 isn't a lot of damage compared to something like a Shatter, which is doing, I think, 3d8 damage. But either way, this is still a pretty useful spell. It provides a lot of opportunities, and it's also a fairly decent spell for a druid that's not concentration based. So there we go. Okay, wow, I had spoke a lot about that, and I'm sure we were missing a lot of questions. All right, so I heard the book is printed upside down. No, but some people probably have had that. That's something we've seen several times over the years where they accidentally do something where they print something upside down or what have you. It happens, but that's not the case at the moment. Okay. I want to know about the backgrounds that give feats. They exist. I don't know what you want me to tell you. They give you a feat called X Initiative, right? So we have the 5 schools, right? And then each background gives you this feat called whatever the... So if we look at Lorehold, let's say Lorehold Student is the background. It gives you history and religion skill proficiencies, 2 languages of your choice, a bunch of equipment that you would normally expect the background to give you. It gives you a feature, but the feature itself is... Instead of giving you a background feature like how Outlander gives you the ability to find food in the forest, the background feature is the feat. That feat is Lorehold Initiate. You gain the Lorehold Initiate. You gain the Strixhaven Initiative feat presented later in this chapter, and you must choose Lorehold. Right. So there's the Strixhaven Initiative feat that lets you pick. If you choose the Lorehold student background, you don't get to pick. It's Lorehold Initiate. In addition, if you have the Spellcasting or Pact Magic feature, the spells on the Lorehold spells table are added to the spell list of your spellcasting classes. If you are a multi-class character with multi-class spell lists, these spells are added to all of them. Now I will flip to the feat and just confirm that everything is the same here. So let's make sure the spell lists are the same. It says it's presented later in this chapter. So, okay. No, it doesn't actually. It gives you specific spells. So, there's actually more. It's actually, I guess, better. Strixhaven Initiate is essentially Magic Initiate, as far as that feat goes. But if you were to choose Lorehold, if you were to do the background, you get the benefit of that particular feat, but then you get access to an expanded spell list similar to the dragon-marked races in Eberron. So continuing on that point, Lorehold, the Lorehold spells that are added to your spell list if you are a Lorehold student background are Comprehend Languages, Identify, Borrow Knowledge, the spell from this book, Locate Objects, Speak with Dead, Spirit Guardians, Arcane Eye, Stone Shape, Flame Strike, and Legend Lore. It says, consider customizing how your spells look when you cast them. Lorehold students might display them in a certain way. And then you have personality traits tied to being a Lorehold student, and then a D6 table of Lorehold trinkets. And you will have a similar thing of what I just described for each other background, right? So Prismari, Quandrix, Silverquill, and Witherbloom will all have their own specific set of spells. They'll all do the same standard things backgrounds do. 2 skills, a bunch of equipment, either 2 tools, 2 languages, or 1 and 1. And they'll give you the Initiate feat, and then the expanded spells. That's pretty much what you're going to see across the board here. Now, if I were to go look, we might as well talk about the feat in an expression here, or go into full detail on it. So, it's Strixhaven Initiate. Choose one of the colleges, the ones that we just described. You learn 2 cantrips and 1 first-level spell based on the college you choose, as specified in a table below, which I will read. You can cast the chosen first-level spell without a spell slot, and you must finish a long rest before you can cast it in that way again. You can also cast that spell using any spell slots you have. Your spellcasting ability for this is Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma. You choose when you select it. So if you choose Lorehold, when you take the Strixhaven Initiative feat, it says, choose 2 cantrips from Light, Sacred Flame, and Thaumaturgy. And then the first level spell is choose 1 first level Cleric or Wizard spell. Prismari is 2 cantrips from Firebolt, Prestidigitation, and Ray of Frost, and a first level Bard or Sorcerer spell. Quandrix is Druidcraft, Guidance, Mage Hand, and then the spells are from the first level spells from the Druid or Wizard spell list. Silverquill are 2 cantrips from Sacred Flame, Thaumaturgy, and Vicious Mockery, and then a first level Bard or Cleric spell. And Witherbloom is Chill Touch, Druidcraft, and Spare the Dying, and then either a first level Druid or Wizard spell. So that's that feat. Now, that, like I said, all of the stuff we just talked about, that is applied to you from the background, but then the background goes a little further and gives you the expanded spell list. Again, that we talked about for Lorehold. I'll run through the other ones as well, because I know that's going to come up later. So the expanded spell list for Prismari is Chromatic Orb, Thunderwave, Flaming Sphere, Kinetic Jaunt, which is from this book, Haste, Water Walk, Freedom of Movement, Wall of Fire, Cone of Cold, and Conjure Elemental. I do like that they also give you the spell associated with the college as part of it. Quandrix is Entangle, Guiding Bolt, Enlarge, Reduce, Vortex Warp, again from this book. Aura of Vitality, Haste, Control Water, Freedom of Movement, Circle of Power, and Pass Wall. Silverquill is Dissonant Whispers and Silvery Barbs, again from this book. Calm Emotions, Darkness, Beacon of Hope, Daylight, Compulsion, Confusion, Dominate Person, and Rary's Telepathic Bond. And lastly, We have, for the Witherbloom students here, Cure Wounds, Inflict Wounds, Lesser Restoration, Wither and Bloom from this book. Revivify, Vampiric Touch, Blight, Death Ward, Anti-Life Shell, and Greater Restoration. So there we go. What colleges are you most excited about, either mechanically or flavor-wise? I think Witherbloom just catches my eye because of the cool necrotic kind of blighter style vibe of the druids to it. So I think that's the best one for me. Okay, best food from my Thanksgiving dinner. Well, Fry Minis, I hate to break it to you, but for those of you who are unaware, I got really, really sick, like bad fever and chills Wednesday night, sort of the night before American Thanksgiving at around 6 p.m. I slept from about 8 p.m. Wednesday night to about 9 a.m. Thursday morning, the morning of American Thanksgiving. I went downstairs, helped my wife as best I could, but I didn't really, if I'm being super honest. I was probably more of a hassle than anything else, but tried to keep the kids busy and occupied. And then family showed up, and then I basically didn't have an appetite and slept from about noon to about 6:30, 7 o'clock that night. And then basically, again, went to bed later on that evening as well because I was just so sick. And I'm still not 100%, but I'm enough to make videos. So I guess it was probably... I don't know, I'm just a sucker for mashed potatoes. I had a leftover famous bowl style thing, turkey, corn, and cheese and whatnot that my wife was nice enough to make for me. So that was what I had today. For dinner, so that was still good. Okay. So okay, let's move on. Moving along. Oh boy, we're jumping. We already missed a bunch. Okay, here we go. What do you think of the subclasses in Strixhaven? Well, if you're asking about the subclasses in here, there are none. So they removed those. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Fry Minis. Thank you. I thought if you're asking conceptually what I thought of the subclasses that were released in the Unearthed Arcana, I mean, one, on the very basic level, you can go watch the video where I make the my comments on the Unearthed Arcana, but I didn't think that it was a bad idea. I know it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because it was breaking down the mechanics and the structure of classes and subclasses as we know it. And D&D, if nothing, it tries to break new ground, and it does in a lot of ways, but it is also very traditional in the way it goes about things. To me, it kind of reminded me more of prestige classes from older editions, and I thought if you're going to do that concept of multi-class subclasses, that was fine as long as you applied that logic to all things. Not necessarily, it didn't need to be everything going forward was that way, but if you were going to do that for these couple of casting classes, then you should do it for the half-casters, like the Paladins and the Rangers, and you should do it for the Marshals as well, right? A class that maybe a Barbarian and a Rogue could take. I don't know what it would look like subclass-wise. That would be all over the place. I would probably run into the issue where some classes get more subclass features than others. Right? I think Rogues, for example, get a bunch more subclass features than, say, a Barbarian does. Could be wrong on that, but that just checks out in my head, that there's more features overall. So I don't know if it would work, but again, the subclasses did not appear in any form in that way in this book. The feats that we were just talking about in the backgrounds, that's sort of the spiritual successor to those those subclasses that they kind of arrived in the form of these feats. Oops. Okay. Let's keep going. Where are we? Yes, that is an Ace of Spades. It's actually a diffuser, which is really cool. You can, the rail pops off. You can put water and essential oils in it, and there's a little switch right there. And then that will actually make the chamber light up, and the diffuser will diffuse the smoke out of the chamber, so it looks like when you activate Memento Mori for the Ace of Spades. That's pretty cool. How immersive is it? Meaning, does it feel like a genuine academy? So again, being honest with you, I didn't have a ton of time to read through the entire book, but I did like what I saw. I did get vaguely academia, college-style vibes from reading through it. Again, we're trying to instill stuff in, you know, Dungeons & Dragons is a great RPG for what it is. Is it the best college simulator RPG? No, definitely not. But I think it does a pretty good job here overall. Do they have stat lines for the Elder Dragons? Yes, they do have stat blocks for the 5 founder dragons. So again, as someone who is not a huge Magic the Gathering person and learns most of my Magic the Gathering knowledge from playing, apparently now, from playing Dungeons & Dragons, I know that the 5 colleges were founded by 5 dragons, and the 5 dragons do have stat blocks in this book. We covered the spells. Are there rules for running/playing Mage Tower? Yeah, I would imagine so. So let's see. Magic items, spells, backgrounds, schools in session. There is a whole chapter called Hunt for Mage Tower. So I have to imagine that that's probably tied to it. Let's see. I see some exams. Let's see what we have. Running exams, campus daredevils, stuff to do. I want to find like the stuff that's to do outside of that. But I have to imagine that, yeah. Let's flip to page 96 here. Hunt for Mage Tower. In this adventure, the characters return to Strixhaven. As the year gets underway, the character appears, urge them to form a team and compete in a high-profile game of Mage Tower. They'll investigate the odd behavior of the magical creatures at the game's center while they prepare for the big game. So, yeah, it does look like there's encouragement to play Mage Tower, so I have to imagine that, yeah, this seems like that is indeed the case. Okay. Do faculty have stats? Would be cool to see how powerful some of the professors are. There are stats. I don't know if it'll be exactly what you want it to be. I know that's very, like, vague. But, like, they're generic stats. So I have, like, Witherbloom Apprentice, Witherbloom Pledge Mage, Witherbloom Professor of Decay, and Witherbloom Professor of Growth, right? So that's, like, for the Witherbloom folks. If I were to go to Silverquill, I'll have, again, the same thing in Apprentice, a Pledge Mage, which I guess seems to be like a higher level, almost like a Journeyman from an Apprentice. And then we have a Professor of Radiance and a Professor of Shadow. So we have kind of 2 professors and then 2 kind of lesser students for each college. Okay, we did the backgrounds. Okay, so there is another feat that was mentioned in some of the pre-materials. So we should cover that, okay? That is the Strixhaven Mascot feat. I'm gonna take a drink real quick. Okay. So this is a feat. There's a prerequisite of being 4th level, and you need to have the Strixhaven Initiate feat. We covered Strixhaven Initiate feat earlier. Reminder, you can take that in theory if you're just playing in the world of Strixhaven and you don't have a background tied to being one of the students. If you're going to play in Strixhaven, I highly recommend you take the background associated with the college you're going to be in, because it does nothing but benefit you in the long run. But let's say your DM allows you to take these spells even if you're not playing in Strixhaven as just an alternate form of Magic Initiate, giving you options for other spellcasting. Because honestly, it's almost better than Magic Initiate in every way. If you look at them comparatively, it benefits from the updated language that I'm sure we're going to get in 2024 when they update all of the things that are out of date. So it has the crucial critical line that says you can also cast this spell using any spell slots you have. We know that that's a thing that is going to be updated probably across the board blanketly in 2024 with these rules expansions and updates coming later on. So, whereas if you take Magic Initiate from the player's handbook, you choose a class, the subclass, the spellcasting modifier that is used for that is tied to the class you pick. You're given free range of any of the cantrips available to that class and one first level spell from that class list. This gives you the option to choose Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma. It's your choice regardless of what you pick. It does hamper you a little bit in the cantrip department, giving you 3 cantrips to pick from, and you get 2 of those. But the first level spell you get to pick is from one of 2 class lists. So really, it gives you a ton more versatility. Although, again, you have limited cantrip selection, but the ability score is your choice. So I'd be willing, you might have to change the name from Strixhaven if you want to have it truly be an in-universe thing in your world, but I'd be willing to let my players take the Strixhaven Initiative feat in place of Magic Initiate as they see fit, and that would, in theory, allow them to be eligible for the Strixhaven Mascot feat, which once again is a 4th level prerequisite spell, and you need to have that Strixhaven Initiative feat, and it gives you the following benefits. You can cast the Find Familiar spell as a ritual. Your familiar can take the form of the mascot associated with the college you chose from your Strixhaven Initiative feat, a spirit statue mascot for Lorehold, an air elemental mascot for Prismari, a fractal mascot for Quandrix, an inkling mascot for Silverquill, or a pest mascot for Witherbloom. Stat blocks for these creatures are available in a later chapter. When you take the attack action on your turn, you can forgo 1 attack to allow your mascot familiar to make 1 attack of its own with its reaction. And if your mascot familiar is within 60 feet of you, you can teleport as an action, swapping places with the familiar. If your destination space is too small for you to occupy, the teleportation fails and is wasted. Once you teleport in this way, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest, unless you expend a spell slot of 2nd level or higher to do so again. Let's see. And it also, it is really Strixhaven Initiate with that secondary feat. It is a tree, right? It's technically, you're taking 2 feats to get this. Although, again, if you have the background, it gives you the first feat for free, and then you could just take Strixhaven Mascot at 4th level, in theory. So not only does it give you Find Familiar, an immensely useful spell, your familiar will be stronger than most familiars out there because it has its own stat block that's unique to it, a little bit stronger overall. You can have an attack. We'll have to eventually look at the attacks that they have and see how good they are. But this teleportation is huge. So it is a once a long rest 60-foot teleportation where you swap places. You don't have to be able to see your familiar. It doesn't state that. It says if it's within 60 feet of you, you can swap places with it. Now, if you have a familiar that has the ability to fly, get into enclosed spaces, I have to assume that the Inkling, which is literally an ooze, can squeeze through stuff. So if it can squeeze through a keyhole and be on the other side of a door, you just swap places with it. No big deal. It also potentially is a great, oh shit button to get out of there. It's a 60-foot swap. Reminder, your familiar is a magical creature that you can just summon again. So if you have to ditch it to run, as this is a getaway plan for you, you can just summon it again at a later point. And you're not even limited in that because you can do it you can get the teleport back by spending a 2nd level spell slot, which is essentially, Misty Step is a 60-foot teleport, a 30-foot teleport as a bonus action. This is a 60-foot swap as an action, and you can use your familiar to fly wherever you want it to go or go where you need it to go, allowing it to be in position. So it has a lot of benefits. And the Find Familiar spell is a ritual for you as well. And I will remind you that both the Strixhaven Initiative feat and the Strixhaven Mascot feat do not require you to be a spellcaster. You will get more leverage out of it by having, especially if you take the background, that gives you the expanded spell list. But if you choose to just be like a fighter with this feat, you could be a fighter with, Guidance and Mage Hand, and then have access to a shield spell and Find Familiar. And that's perfectly normal. So these are things to consider, right? You don't have to necessarily be a spellcaster. Why you're a fighter in a spellcaster school, I don't know. But, have fun with it. Okay, we're moving on. I'm going to have some more coffee. What do we got here? Now, we covered all the feats. What does the book say about martial characters attending Strixhaven? Well, again, maybe I want to be putting my foot in my mouth after just saying that, but I don't think it specifically states that you have to be a, let's see. Fundamental work of Strixhaven University's application of magic to academic study. Students and faculty aren't limited to magical topics alone. The studies preside in every facet of existence, magical or otherwise. Students have their first year. First year students live in dormitories. A few students continue to live on campus. Get a lot of college information here. So I don't see anything that specifically states that you need to be a spellcaster. I imagine, like I said, you'll get a lot more leverage out of a bunch of the different things if you choose to be a spellcasting class. But I don't see, like, I mean, they mentioned some of the new spells are available to Artificer, which is not a full caster. So I don't see anything specific about it. That's also very much the antithesis of Wizards of the Coast's way to go about this. They wouldn't make a book that is only applicable to spellcasters because that would potentially alienate the martial players. And this is all of, 5th edition is all about being as inclusive as possible. So, yeah. Okay. So that is... Oh, wait, is this it? And I think that's also why they said they changed it from being Strixhaven subclasses to Strixhaven feats. The reason behind that was they didn't want to limit it to only people playing as spellcasters. If you wanted to play as a fighter but still have access to some of the abilities, you could. Okay. The disclaimer. Okay, the disclaimer is... A degree from Strixhaven University does not provide protection from magic missiles, fireballs, freezing spheres, or any other, was it deleterious? I don't even know that word. Deleterious effects spellcasters might generate. If you create deleterious effects, Strixhaven kindly requests you refrain from invoking any names, symbols, or other references to the university should you find yourself in a confrontation. Strixhaven University does not take responsibility for any injury of any nature sustained in the course of anything magical or otherwise. I just started, okay. Is Curriculum of Chaos an oxymoron? Welcome students who showed up on time. You have failed Chaos 101. I guess in theory, but let's see. It's a better version of Shield. Disadvantage is technically a -5. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Tyler, congratulations on your new job. Oh, you can be here for this. I get it. Well, welcome. Glad to have you here. So someone mentioned the 90-foot teleport, so that was in reference to Vortex Warp. It says you twist a space around another creature you can see within range. So Vortex Warp does not seem like it will work. You can't target yourself. Oh, and I forgot to mention that the target can choose to fail the Constitution saving throw. So I don't see it as working on you. For those of you who missed this, Vortex Warp is one of the new spells that basically allows you to make someone make a Constitution saving throw and then teleport them 90 feet somewhere else. The way it reads, it doesn't seem like you can target yourself with this. But I forgot to mention before that the target can choose to fail, so you can use this on an ally to reposition an ally if need be. Did the backgrounds, no subclasses. I didn't go over Owlin. I'm surprised no one asked about Owlin earlier, so let's do that. That's the new race. Well, not new. We received it in Unearthed Arcana. And I am going to pull up the Unearthed Arcana, what was it, Folk of the Feywild, to compare it. Because I do believe it lost one ability in comparison. And I thought it was a relatively harmless ability to lose as well. So let's go ahead and go to the Owl Folk. Yeah, it did. Okay. So Owlin... again, we have the creating your character section, right? So it's going to get choose your ability scores. Do you want to have +2, +1, or +1/+1/+1. Languages are common, and then obviously it has a standard language, right? Creature type, most of them are humanoid. Now, it doesn't give us anything specific about lifespan. It does say typical lifespan of a player character in D&D is about a century. Height and weight, pick what you want. Distant kin of giant owls from the Feywild. Owlin come in many shapes and sizes. They have arms and legs like humanoids, as well as wings that extend from their backs and shoulders. Like owls, owlins are graced with feathers that make no sound when they move or fly, making it easy for them to sneak up on you in the library. Your owlin character might be nocturnal, or perhaps your character is simply prone to rise later, embodying the common name of, or nickname of Night Owl. So I think that is purely a flavor thing, saying that their flight is completely silent. They do get proficiency in stealth, which I think is the kind of the allusion to that. But you are a humanoid, which is the same as the Unearthed Arcana. You get to be either medium or small size when you choose the race. That remains the same. Your walking speed is 30 feet. Now, originally in the Unearthed Arcana, the dark vision was out to 90 feet, which I thought was unique because that was the only time we had seen dark vision, I believe, starting on a race at 90 feet. It has been updated to be 120 feet of dark vision. It has flight. Thanks to your wings, you have a flying speed equal to your walking speed. You can't use this speed if you're wearing medium or heavy armor. It had... did it have flight? Did it really not? Oh. Flying speed equal to your walking speed. And then it used to have an ability called Nimble Flight. Thanks to your wings, you have a flying speed equal to your walking speed. And when you fall, you can use your reaction to make a dexterity saving throw DC 10 to stop falling and fly in place until the end of your next turn. They have nixed all of that fun stuff about using your reaction to stop your fall in flight. And they have also imposed the concept of your flying speed doesn't work if you're wearing medium or heavy armor. And they also had an ability called Silent Feathers, which they carried over, which is proficiency in the stealth skill. And you also lost, which is, again, something I feel like is really kind of just why, an ability that they used to have called Magic Sight, which is the ability to cast the Detect Magic spell, but only as a ritual. Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma was the modifier for that. And you could cast this normally with spell slots if you had them. So they have cut that completely. So I would say I would use the term largely unchanged very loosely because... Now, I'm pretty sure Nimble Flight not having the concept of saying, you know, if they're not wearing medium or heavy armor, I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be there. Or maybe that's a call they made after the fact because I believe they added the same impact to the fairy. The fairy had fairy flight, which didn't specify that you couldn't wear medium or heavy armor, which a lot of people like the concept of an Owlin paladin or an owl or a fairy paladin where they could fly around in heavy armor. Without any having to cast any spells or anything, and that's obviously been negated. So, again, your dark vision went from 90 feet to 120 feet. You lost the ability to cast Detect Magic, and you also lost the ability to stop yourself from falling as a reaction while flying. I guess in general, right, I'd look at an extra 30 feet of dark vision versus, in place of reactionary stopping your fall in flight, not being able to fly in medium or heavy armor, and losing Detect Magic. I think that nets out as a nerf overall, in my opinion. Thank you, Dom. I do have long eyelashes. I've heard that all my life. All of the women in my life, family and otherwise, have been very jealous of my eyelashes. Okay. So, man, I missed a bunch. Scrolling back up. Okay. I don't even know what these are in reference to. What percentage of the book is lore/player options versus the adventure? Okay, that I can get you. So, let's see. The first chapter, so the whole book, let's talk about that. 224 pages, okay? Chapter 1 is high-level stuff. It's called Life on Campus, and it's a little bit of an overview about all the different colleges. That is roughly 17 pages of that 224. The second chapter is called Character Options, and that is 11 pages. Okay, so that's pages 28 to 39. That's going to give us the race, That's going to give us all of the different backgrounds, the feats, the spells, and the magic items. Chapter 7 is Friends and Foes. I'm going to actually do a little math here for you on the side. So we had, what do we say? Life on campus was, I guess that's high-level overview. We won't count that. 17 pages, the 11 pages for the character options. And then as far as the monsters and the NPCs, that is... what is that? It's 42 pages, plus the 11, plus the 17. So it looks like it's about 70 or so. 70 of the 224 are basically character options and you know, stat blocks, versus the remaining are the remaining of the 224 is adventure. Now I will say that chapter 3, the first couple pages at the start of the chapter are a little bit about like extracurricular stuff, but it's chapter 3 is school in session, which has a little bit about, you know, how to track the adventure, extracurricular activities, jobs you can do, exams, relationships, all of the fellow students is a big chunk of that, and then a handful of adventures. Chapter 4 is the Mage Tower one. And actually, it's interesting. It has little things like, it's like advanced to level 2 on page 74, advanced to level 3 on page 86. So it's very much clearly spelled out when you will level up. Reminder that this does go to 10th level. Then you have Chapter 4, Hunt for Mage Tower, Chapter 5, The Magister's Masquerade, and Chapter 6, A Reckoning in Ruin. So basically, 4 chapters? It kind of, I guess that's essentially almost like 4 years in the college. So, there you go. Is there anything about the world outside Strixhaven? Not too much, because this is pretty much all about... this is a little bit about Strixhaven's world. There's like a... there's like a couple... What's it, 1 page? Yeah. This is a... Let's see here. Strixhaven's world is like this. That's this right here. Like the world outside of the college specifically, but it's primarily the college itself. I did see a super chat come through. I'm going to go check that out. First time catching a stream. Favorite Thanksgiving food. My favorite Thanksgiving food is, we talked about what happened this year, but definitely it's mashed potatoes. I love a carb. You really can't go wrong with mashed potatoes. Even if I feel like mashed potatoes is also a food that even if I like eat so much of other stuff, I can always find room to just shovel more mashed potatoes in my face. Okay. They have the Gatling gun spell scroll. Let's go look at the spells there, see what we got. The magic items. I didn't really look through all of them, honestly. I stopped at the coffee one because it caught my eye. We have... No, I don't see any spell scrolls with a Gatling gun in it, so no. Aren't there more feats that grant a familiar? No. There is basically, as far as I know, off the top of my head, all I can think of is Magic Initiate can get you Find Familiar if you choose Wizard. Strixhaven Initiate can get you Find Familiar if you have the 2-tiered feats. And then there's ways to get familiars via certain subclasses, I think, can get them. You know, like Arcane Trickster and Eldritch Knight can get one. Multi-classing into 1 level of Wizard. And then I think Warlock, right? The Pact of the Chain Warlock. What are the NPCs in Strixhaven like? Well, there's a lot of information in about the NPCs, about like the fellow students. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. They all have like a piece of art and then a little bit of information about them. So it tells you what their alignment is, what year they are in the school, what college they're in. Gives you a little bit of background, what extracurriculars they're in, what jobs they hold, A Bond Boon and a Bond Bane. So if we look at, for example, Greta Gorun was the sort of dwarf that we just looked at. She's right here. Her Bond Boon is whenever you need anything heavy moved, members of the Iron Lifter Society show up to help you. I guess that's if she's on your good side. She's on your bad side. Heavy things show up in inconvenient places, such as in front of your dorm door. Her extracurriculars are the Strixhaven Iron Lifter Society, and her job is the Strixhaven Stadium Equipment Assistant. So she's obviously very much an athletic. Okay, all about new magic items. All right, let's get the magic items out of the way. Okay, so we do have a couple of unique items, and then we kind of have like spell books, as it were, tied to each of the classes, similar to what we saw, in a way, in was it Tasha's? Yeah, I guess it was in Tasha's. All of these magic items have prices, by the way. They are only uncommon and common magic items, but they do all have price points, which is something interesting. So the one that I posted around on social media, the Bottle of Boundless Coffee, is a 100 gold piece common magic item. It carries delicious warm coffee. It comes with a stopper with a little chain. Even when open, the bottle won't accept any liquid other than the coffee it produces. It is coffee inside is always comfortably warm, and none of the heat can be felt through the bottle. Each time you drink the coffee, roll a d20. On a 1, the bottle refuses to dispense coffee for the next hour. If you pour your coffee from the bottle rather than drinking from it, the coffee vanishes the moment it leaves the bottle. I'll remind you that this is a common magic item, although again, it is still worth 100 gold, so not something that your average Joe is going to have. But in theory, with it being common and only 100 gold, you could buy a bunch of them, or a bunch of people could buy them, so you can each have your own. There's the cuddly Strixhaven Mascot. We had heard about this one in advance. Another common magic item, which is 100 gold pieces. It is a stuffed animal of your specific college's mascot. If you press it to your arm, shoulder, or leg as an action, it stays there attached to you for an hour or until you use an action to remove it. But while it is stuck there, you can when you make a saving throw to avoid or end the frightened condition on yourself, you can give yourself advantage on the roll if the toy is on your person. You must decide to do so before rolling the d20. If the save succeeds, you can't use the toy in this way until you finish a long rest. Then we have our 5 primers, which are the Lorehold Primer, which is uncommon, requires attunement by a spellcaster, a magical textbook. It contains, this is pretty much, you'll notice that this is going to be similar across the board, but it contains 3 charges, regains a d3 daily at dawn. That's standard for all of them across the board. But then it's going to be tied to a couple of skills, right? So if you make an intelligence history or intelligence religion check while holding the primer, you can expend 1 charge to give yourself a bonus 1d4 to that check immediately after you roll the d20, kind of essentially giving yourself guidance, although this would still stack with the guidance spell. In addition, if you choose the primer, if you study the primer at the end of a long rest, you can choose 1 first level spell from the cleric or wizard spell list. Before you finish your next long rest, you can cast that chosen spell once without expending a spell slot if you're holding the primer. It is intelligence, spellcasting modifiers, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. And I believe that is pretty much the same across the board, it's just what the spells are. So the Prismari primer, same thing, except it's dexterity and acrobatics checks. Dexterity, acrobatics, and performance checks. While you hold it, you can get the bonus d4 to it, and the first level spell you can choose at the end is either Bard or Sorcerer, but that's, again, the same for both. Quandrix is Arcana and Nature checks, and it's from the Druid or Wizard spell list. Silver Quill is Intimidation or Persuasion, and it is from the Bard or Cleric list, and Witherbloom is Nature or Survival from the Druid or Wizard list. And lastly, there is the Strixhaven Pennant. Not a pendant, a pennant that you would, like a flag that you would hang up. This magical pennant bears the symbol of one of the colleges. While you wave the pennant, the symbol on it glitters, and the pennant sheds bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for another additional 10 feet. The pennant is 100 gold. All of the primer books that we talked about are 300 gold each. It also has a price for it's charging 50 gold for any first level spell scroll, and 300 gold for a +1 weapon. So those are all available in this little table that gives you magic item pricing. We talked about, yes, there is stuff for the dragons. My day today was pretty good, no fun allowed. I just kind of hung around with the kids. We watched some TV. They slept in super late, which was awesome. And then, yeah, I ate a bunch of Thanksgiving leftovers and waited for 1 million Amazon packages to arrive. I cover the new races. Any Cray, I'm assuming that must be crazy, or Cray works for either. Cray Unique Monsters. Well, let's go take a look. I did see there was a plant creature, and that got me excited just because it was a plant. So I'm assuming we're going to come back to this and people will tell me. Now, again, there's the unique dragons, which are pretty cool in and of themselves. They're around challenge rating 24, so those are pretty neat. The mascots are all about a quarter. So I happen to pull up the air elemental mascot. It is a challenge rating 1/4. It does have an armor class of 11 and 18 hit points, so it's probably one of the sturdier find familiars you'll have. It is also immune to poison, the poison condition, and resistant to cold and fire, so it'll be pretty hardy. Also, when it dies, it kind of blows up and blinds people. It has an attack called Joyful Flare that does 2d4 plus 1 damage, and a thing called Melancholic Bolt that does 2d4 plus 1 cold damage with a range of 30 feet. Now, both of those are pretty solid 2d4 damage, especially if you had access to this early on. 2d4 plus 1 damage from a familiar is pretty good. Discount, viscount. Do I agree with dropping multi-class subclasses? Not necessarily. I don't, like, I wasn't one of these people that was a huge proponent of it. I would have liked to have seen what the final versions look like. I do think that there was some issues, right? The big one being where some classes have more subclass features than others, versus how some had, you know, to pick and choose. Like, if I think it was the Bard would need to pick and choose what ability it got, whereas like the Wizard would get all of them, because Bards basically only get 3 subclass features, whereas most other subclasses get 4 or more. So that was a little funky. And like I said, as long as they treated it well and then eventually did something to provide a similar concept to these multi-class subclasses to the martial characters, I think it would have been fine. But yeah, potentially giving up an attack to have an enemy, you know, a creature do 2d4 damage is pretty solid with the air elemental, or the art elemental mascot. I said air before, I meant art. I think the Groff is probably one of the, not the craziest, but like, look at this guy. A big, like, swamp bear thing. It's from Bayou, even. Shaggy swamp creatures have canine faces and glowing blue eyes. They are ravenous carnivores. Pet mascots are their favorite food. And they have challenge rating 4. They're decent bite attack, and they have Swamp Claw. If it hits a medium or smaller creature, they must make a DC 15 strength save or be engulfed by it. While engulfed, it takes, you know, damage, kind of as you would expect. So I thought that was pretty cool. Oh, the music stopped. Let's resume it. Yes, I did the disclaimer. We did the Owlin. We did the 5 new spells, 2 new feats. Yes, the Owlin is different. Professor Onyx specifically. I can look for you. Actually, we can go to the table of contents. I don't see a specific Professor Onyx stat block. Although I don't know if there are stat blocks peppered throughout like there have been with previous books, but we'll see. How do I get my players to move on from 5e? As in, they're playing 5e currently and you want them to play something else? Because you're really barking up the wrong tree, my dude. But if they don't want... Here's the thing, though. If your players don't want to move on from 5th edition, maybe it's time you move on and go to play other games. But you shouldn't force your players. If they're content to play the edition that they're currently playing in, I wouldn't force them to move on. I mean, unless you want them to try other systems and things like that, which is fine. You know, I've played a bunch of different RPG systems, and I try to get my friends into it, but Dungeons & Dragons feels like home to them. They know it. They understand it. They know how the rules work. They feel confident in their ability to play characters and you know, be effective both in combat and out of combat. So I'm not going to just be like, when are you guys going to move on and play a different game? I could be like, hey, I want to try out this other RPG system. What do you guys think? Let's give it a shot. And maybe, yeah, we naturally do move on in that way, but I don't know. Is there any information on the Auroch and or a stat block for the Blood avatar? I thought I saw Auroch in here. Yes, there's an Auroch Blood Mage and an Auroch Recruiter in here. And what was the other thing you said? Auroch or the Blood avatar. No Blood avatar, but there's an Auroch Blood Mage on page 201. Art for you here. Reminds me of a Destiny Hunter. Or a Destiny Warlock, rather. Challenge rating 9. There's a couple, it looks like it's got a lot of blood-based magic here, right? Its AC includes its Constitution. It wears the Auroch mask. It can be targeted by divination or perceived through magical scrying. There's double bonus to deception checks. While it isn't blinded, it can see any creature that isn't undead or construct within 60 feet. You can do Blood Lash, which has a 10-foot reach, does 3d10 plus 5 necrotic, and if they is a creature, it can't regain hit points until the start of the Blood Mage's next turn. And it has Blood Boil, which is a kind of AoE attack. Choose a point within 150 feet, 20-foot radius sphere centered on the point. Creatures in that area must make a DC 17 con save or take 70-10 necrotic damage and be incapacitated until the end of their next turn. On a success, they take half as much and aren't incapacitated. A creature dies if it reduces its hit points to 0 by this necrotic damage. Let's see. Cut over the feats. Thoughts compared to Fizzbands. They are very different books. So that's kind of an unfair comparison. This is this weird hybrid. We'll see if this works. And you know, you guys can be the judge of it the sales will be the judge of it too. So we've pretty much been very stark one way or another. Resource book, adventure campaign, right? That's kind of how things have been. This is sort of campaign and resource book mixed together. I don't know if that's the right call or not, but if it does well, I can anticipate this being a thing we see in the future. Do I prefer the regular or the alt art? I prefer the alt art. Is there a sorting hat quiz to determine the school you get into? Not in this book, I don't think. That would be cool, though. Let's see. There's a lot about the colleges. Yeah, I'm sure there's probably one online somewhere. What tells you? You have a little, like, report card tracking stuff. Kind of cool. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't really... I don't see anything as, like, a specific way to determine what college you're in other than just picking one. Yeah, it just says choose a college. Did we get the 5 dragons? Yes, we did. The NPC classmates. We kind of covered what's her face there. Greta Gorin. Okay, let's see what we got. Let's grab somebody else here. Oh, we're gonna go with Urs Mactock-Grosh, because look at the tusks on this orc. You see these tusks? Are they like, rather than like going up, they come like way out in front? Pretty crazy, huh? Alright, so he is a second year Witherbloom, neutral orc. His extracurriculars are the Fantastical Horticulture Club, and his jobs are the Campus Magic Labs Specimen Preparer. If you have the boon from him, no matter the subject, you can always find a partner to study with, whether it's Urs Mactock or a classmate doing him a favor. And against him, no one on campus who isn't another player character will study with you. If you ask, most will shrug decline, saying you'll probably fail. So that sounds pretty rough. He works for the Campus Magic Labs as a specimen preparer. He wants everyone to use his full first name. Should anyone use a nickname, he won't acknowledge the address. Or the address, I guess. Meticulous student, consistently high marks. Well, there you go. Falling down, trying to catch up. Thank you for everyone who's hoping I feel better. We did address the Owlin. It's only that one race. Okay, let's see. Time warp question thing. Do we get the 5 dragon stat blocks? We did. Only the one new race. Owlin have been addressed. There are a ton of classmates, so it will be a long time to go through all of them. So I'll give you guys one more. How about that? How about this fire genasi that's right next to that orc? Zanther Bowen. He's a chaotic good fire genasi first year Prismari student. His extracurriculars include intramural gymnastics club and Mage Tower cheer squad, and he has no jobs. If you get the boon from him, you enjoy a high social rank as a result of your association with Zanther. Most of your peers fall all over themselves to do you favors. And the boon is no one on campus invites you to parties or events, although your friends receive invitations. Oof, yeah. Alright. Let's see. I was very much looking forward to the mine. Get mine this weekend. Would you rate this book compared to Theros? It's hard to say. Theros was more of a campaign setting and less of an adventure. That's the problem with this one. It's weird, right? Theros was a campaign setting, which had a bunch of races and things in it, and subclasses and whatnot. This isn't really a campaign setting. This is a pre-written campaign with some background stuff in it, with like some resource materials in it. Whereas normally this would have in the past been more along the lines of something like Rime of the Frost Maiden, where you just get the book and you could use it to run the game, but it didn't provide you a ton of information about it. Or I guess more recently it'd be more like Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which was an adventure set in the Feywild with no actual information about the Feywild unless you downloaded the DLC content from the DM's Guild. Are there rules for the special NPCs referencing sidekicks or something? And do you think this boon thing can be applied to real games in an easy way? Oh, you mean using these, like the NPC boons in an additional way? It says the student NPCs are meant to interact with characters primarily in role-playing situations. It does have some stuff here, like stat blocks that are in the book, like first year student is a stat block, and they say to use that for the first year, and they give you some other stat blocks to use for later years. So I don't believe there's plans for them to have like sidekick levels or things like that. Can we take a look at the extracurriculars? Sure. 44. Okay. So you know, this is the extracurriculars, but most of them are like this. Okay. So it says, you know, how to join an extracurricular. The benefits are each character gains 1 student die for each extracurricular they're participating in. Die is a d4, and they can roll it and add to ability checks that the character makes, provided the check uses one of the skills listed in the extracurricular's description. The player can wait until after rolling the d20 before rolling the student die. And while a student participates in an extracurricular, the student gains either a positive or negative relationship point with one student NPC who is also a member of the extracurricular. We have things like Dead Languages Society. So I'll just grab one random one that we've heard already. So there was the Lifters one, or the Mage Tower Cheer Squad, right? The skills are Perception, Persuasion, and the member here is again listed as Zanther Bowen. With their coordinated cheers, outfits, and school spirit, these cheerleaders inspire pride in the official Strixhaven University Mage Tower teams. Does actually continue. No, it doesn't continue on the next page at all. It just ends. Intramural gymnastics clubs, acrobatics, and performance, also Zanther Bowen. These graceful gymnastics work to hone their craft, or graceful gymnasts rather work to hone their craft, and they compete against each other in dazzling floor routines. That's pretty much it. How extracurriculars are handled. Okay. The adventures go from 1 to 10. Yeah, 1 to 10. How many quests are in the book? Well, that's hard to say. There are specific things that are like listed. There's like exams and things that you can go on. Or there are the exams, and then there's different things that can happen. So I wouldn't say I have a specific number on how many quests there are to go on, but enough to get you from level 1 to level 10. General ratings of the book at this current point, I'd say I'm relatively positive. I would put myself in the realm of like a 7 out of 10 if I had to rank the book, because it's... The problem is I don't really play adventures, so that's where it loses a lot of its points, is that I don't really run, or I haven't had the opportunity or the time to play in or run pre-written campaigns basically at all in the past couple of years. So I can't really say. Now, I had in the past run a bunch of them, and most of those exist somewhere here on the channel. So for those cases, yeah, I this would be higher on the book for me, because 4 out of the 7 chapters are all about the adventure itself, the campaign, or there you go. Would this book be used less for magic-based school and more for a unique military academy? It could definitely be used as a military academy with very minimal tweaks, I think. This book comes out on December 7th. Okay, jobs next. We did the extracurriculars. Jobs is pretty much a similar thing, although there's less. So extracurriculars you saw was those 2 pages. Jobs, this page. The benefit of a job is wage. A student who works a job gains 5 gold pieces at the start of each week that they held the job. If a student quits during the academic year, they stop earning. And while a character works on a job, they gain a positive or negative relationship point with one student or NPC at that job. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, looks like 9 total jobs. So, for example, there's the Bow's End Tavern, which jobs are assistant manager, cleanup crew member, cook, host, and server. But they don't really tell you what that means. They just tell you that they exist and give you some information. The Fire Jolt Cafe has a job for a barista, a cashier, cleanup crew member, and server. The Performing Arts Society has a cleanup crew member, general assistant, refreshments expert, stagehand, ticket taker, and usher. So that's kind of how that works. It does have a map. It is a poster map in the back that you can pull out, but the map is basically this, which is the whole campus. Alright, wow, did I actually catch up to chat? That's crazy. I didn't actually expect the questions to be as fast and furious for this book as they were for things like Fizzbands, because there's a lot of stuff there because it's a dragon resource book, whereas this is an adventure. So if you want to play in the adventure, people don't ask too many questions because they don't want to have it spoiled for them. But no, I have not gone over any of the Mage Tower or that kind of stuff. I can though. Any MTG settings you'd like to see as D&D books? Again, as someone who's not really a D&D, or sorry, not really a Magic the Gathering person, the more recent one that had Godzilla as a crossover card, because it's got like the huge Goliath behemoth monsters, that one I think could be fun. Does this kind of compare? I would say it is kind of a good comparison to AC Inc. That is a very good, astute observation. It's more along the lines of an Acquisitions Incorporated book, the AC Inc. book, than anything else. Yeah, we talked about Mage Tower is kind of like Quidditch. Oh. So a quest to level the players up. Kind of, yeah, like excursions or field trips. Yep, it seems to be that way. Could you read some of the Elder Dragon Statblocks? Quandaries, preferably. Sure. Quandaries, preferably. That's Silver Quill. Where is this? Oh, Tanazir Quandaries. Challenge rating 24, Dragon, Gargantuan Dragon Wizard. Immune to force and psychic damage, legendary resistance 3 times a day. Blindside out to 120 feet. Multi-attack makes 1 bite and 2 claws. Bites does a d10 plus 9 piercing plus 2d6 force. Claw does 2d6 plus 9 slashing. If it's reduced to 0, and it's addled by recursive thoughts, reducing its speed to 0. Diminution breath of a recharge of 5/6. A 90-foot cone. Each creature in that must make a DC 13 con save. On a failure, they take 13d6 force damage and 13d6 psychic damage and are weakened until the start of Tanazir's next turn. While weakened, it has disadvantage on the following rolls that rely on strength, attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws. Spellcasting once a day each with a DC 24 of Divination, Enlarge, Reduce, Mirror Image. Mirage Arcane, rather. Polymorph and Scrying as an action, and then Seeming. Also teleport 100 feet, just whenever. Legendary actions, it has 3, a claw attack for 1, a fold space for 2. Tanazir uses teleport, and each creature within 20 feet of the space she left must succeed on a DC 24 strength save or be pulled up to 30 feet closer to the center of the space and take 3d10 force damage. And lastly, for 3 actions, Fractal Refraction. Tanazir magically summons a D4 Fractal monsters, or Fractal Mascots, rather, in occupied spaces within 120 feet. The Fatal obeys her... the Fractals obey her commands and take turns immediately after hers. Will any of these Fractals remain, attack rolls made against Tanazir have disadvantage. A summoned Fractal disappears after a minute when it or Tanazir dies, or when they use this again. Okay, someone wanted to hear about the Inkling Mascot. Inkling Mascot, there's another one I said. Inkling and Fractal. Okay. The Inkling. I'm sorry, no. Fractal. Challenge rating 1/4, 12 AC, 27 hit points. Immunity to poison, the poison condition. Can move through creatures and objects as it was difficult terrain. Has the Quantum Strike, which does a D4 plus 1 force damage, or 2d4 plus 1 force damage if the fractal is medium or bigger. Has Augment, increases by size by 1. As well as medium or bigger, it makes strength checks and saving throws with advantage. It can become no larger than huge via this bonus action boon. And then Diminish is basically the inverse of that. Inkling, challenge rating 1/4, Ooze, 13 AC, 18 hit points. Does have a fly speed of 30 feet. Immune to Psychic, Blinded, Charmed, Deafened, Exhaustion, Prone. The Inkling can move through a space as narrow as 1 inch without squeezing. Has a bite attack that does a D4 plus 3 psychic damage. And they can ink spray once a day. One creature within 15 feet. They must succeed on a DC 12 con save or be blinded until the end of the Inkling's next turn. That is a bonus action. While in dim light or darkness, the Inkling takes the hide action via its shadow stealth ability. Okay. Just refreshing, make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I did not expect too many questions because this is kind of a weird vibe. This kind of book is in between. We touched on Mage Tower already. We touched on the new spells and all the new magic items. So, honestly, folks, I'm thinking I might call this live stream early. I know that's not very like me, but I am feeling all of a sudden very tired. And that's very much not like me, especially at 11:30 at night. I'm usually much more awake and go for multiple hours throughout the evening. But I think I am still getting over this sickness. So, I might just do another live stream again tomorrow, where I can basically do like a part 2. Any school secrets, like the hidden chambers in Harry Potter? Again, I haven't really gotten a chance to read through the big chunk in the middle, which is the adventure itself. I've read through most of, basically everything that everyone has questioned me on. The character options and the monster stat blocks I have read, whereas the sort of middle ground, which is the adventure itself, kind of didn't read through. Can I rank any of the new spells? Oh, well, I can answer a couple of these questions that are not tied to the book because they're generic. Do I think we'll see adventures take this route going forward? It's weird. I'm not sure. The resource book is a tried and true method where you just get the book and it's, it's for the players and the DM, and the campaign guide is also. So here's the thing. The only thing we know about coming out next year so far, aside from the expanded rules, is the Critical Role book, and that looks to be the Critical Role book looks to be just a straight up adventure, not kind of this blend. I don't know if that's because they worked out the book deals, years ago, or however many years ago they worked out the book deal. But I think that one's going to go back more to the true to form standalone adventure. So I don't know if we'll really have to see if this book just sells like crazy, which it has the potential to sell well because it's capturing the D&D audience as well as the Magic audience. But I don't know. Let's see. Just real quick, someone asked to rank the spells. There are 5, so it's not like it's a crazy thing. I'm going to say, starting from 5 being the least powerful to 1 being the most powerful, I'm going to say least powerful we'll go Borrowed Knowledge as number 5, which is the one where you get the proficiency in a skill you didn't have proficiency in. We'll go with number 4 as Kinetic Jaunt. That's the one that gives you increased movement speed and no attacks of opportunity. Number 3, I'm going to give to... Number 3, I'm going to give to Vortex Warp, the one that allows you to teleport, a creature 90 feet somewhere else within 90 feet. Number 2, I'm going to give to Witherbloom, the AoE damage and potential heal as well. And I have to give number 1 to Silvery Barbs, a level 1 spell that could potentially turn a miss or a hit into a miss and then also provide advantage to an ally. And none of those are concentration, and it's triggered as a reaction. That is a clear winner for me. And the fact that it's on a class like a Bard, which is a very buff debuff class, I think that's really well done. It's also on the Sorcerer and the Wizard. I think it just makes more sense in my head to be on the Bard, so I think that's definitely the number 1 spell for me. And again, it's a first level spell, so we can get a lot of use out of that. Do I want more smaller setting books like this, or do I prefer... I prefer the large... I would prefer even bigger books than Eberron, like a big, large... I would even say, don't put this standalone... So if you want to go inverse of what they did with Wild Beyond the Witchlight, where Wild Beyond the Witchlight, they did... they did a whole adventure, and they're like, oops, people wanted stuff about the Feywild. Let's make that as a pay-to-play DLC that you have to download after the fact and buy off the DM's Guild. And even reference the DM's Guild in Wild Beyond the Witchlight to tell you, hey, you want to see about this cool character? Go buy this book, this PDF. I would rather have them say, here is a 240-page, maybe 300-page book that is just the campaign setting. And if you want, save me all of the pages that you put in Eberron for that little level 1 to 4 adventure that you just tacked on there to give somebody something to run, that should be the PDF you get after the fact. So if I want to buy just the source book for the source material, I could do that. And if I want to run a little intro adventure in there, make that the thing that you add on the DM's Guild if you want to have people pick up just a little something from the book as well. That makes more sense to me. How do I rate the villains of this book? Hard to say about the villains because it's something I'm not too familiar with, as I haven't really read the adventure much. I know that you can potentially anger some of the sort of NPCs that they have in here that you can also romance. And from what we've seen as some of the negative boons or the banes provided by these NPCs, it could definitely be interesting how you go about, maneuvering through those. Do you think the owl in Owlin was nerfed or buffed? It definitely nerfed, 100%. What are you most looking for in these kinds of books? These pseudo adventure / player options books. Honestly, for me, the chance of me running the adventure is very small. All right. Years ago, before I had kids and like a lot of my friends and stuff had kids, the chances of me running the adventure was probably pretty high because we could choose to like, right now I play routinely on a Tuesday night. We used to often stream on Sundays as well and play games on Sunday because we had no responsibilities. So we could all get together on a Sunday and say like, hey, does everybody want to come over and we'll get breakfast at around like noon and we'll just marathon game session for like 6 hours. And, you know, my wife could be free to go do whatever she wanted to do. And again, the rest of us had no responsibilities. So we could just play games for 6 hours on a Sunday. And we would often do that to play through pre-written campaigns. So we would do that to like bang out something like Curse of Strahd or something like that. We could do a couple of Sunday games and then play through an adventure. And that was great. But, you know, now we all have kids. And it's like if I were to do the same thing now, then my wife would have to watch 2 kids while I played for 6 hours on a Sunday. And that's just unfair. And it wouldn't be just me, too. That would just be unfair all around. So I don't really care about the adventure at all, being completely frank. Because I'm not going to get a chance. I get 1 night a week to play D&D, maybe 2 if I find like a one-shot that someone can run and it lines up with my schedule. I can maybe get 2 nights of gaming in. But I have 1 night to play D&D. And chances are it's going to be D&D that I'm running in my own homebrew world, or if one of my players asks to run a game or is running sort of a campaign, then that will happen. But more often than not, I'm not going to get a chance to play through any pre-written anything unless I go to a convention and like I'm just don't have anything else going on at the convention. I can sit down and play in a game someone's going to run. So I have no interest in pre-written campaigns at all. My favorite thing about the pre-written campaign books are the new monsters and the magic items. That's what's most interesting to me. I would rather just have DM tools and, you know, resource materials with new subclasses, races, magic items, things like that. That's also why a lot of these third-party companies do so well, because that's what they're putting out there. I'm not going to say that there aren't third-party campaign settings that are doing well, because that's definitely the thing, but a lot of the really big, not all of them, but a lot of the really big, heavy-hitting Kickstarters out there are providing a ton of just options. Like, Matt Colville's was one of the biggest ones, right? The Strongholds and Followers. That wasn't really a campaign. It was rules for Strongholds and Followers, right? Like, that's what that was, you know? You see some of these, like, again, some of them are sort of campaign settings, like the Grim World, right? That was the Ghostfire Games one. Some of them are in that instance, but people are more getting them for, like, the gritty realism rules in it, I would say, more so than the actual campaign setting. And I find myself, when I back books on, than the campaign, the adventure, I should say, the pre-written adventure. And that's kind of what it's like for me when I buy books and back Kickstarters. I primarily back ones that will provide me tools and resources that I can use in my DMing, more so than I will buy a pre-written adventure module that I can run through, because the opportunity for me to actually either play in it or run it is slim to none. Grim Hollow, thank you, Nat. Sure. Once in a while, but put a plain looking weapon for cheap that's actually a Durger Masterwork. Yeah. How are the relationship rules? They do have like 2 pages. And they have a whole system on relationship points. So it says the characters have opportunities throughout the adventure to gain relationship points with student NPCs. A character, other role-playing encounters might also give these points. The character's total number of relationship points with an NPC determines their status. Relationship points start at 0 and either increase or decrease by 1 each time they interact positively or negatively with the NPC. When a character interacts with a student NPC, the player decides which of the following categories they wish their response to fall under. Friendly response or rivalrous response. Friendly response earns a point, rivalrous takes a negative. Each time a character's number of relationship points changes for an NPC, the player should note that on their tracking sheet. There is a tracking sheet to keep track of relationships as well. When a character has 2 relationship points or more with an NPC, they get the boon that we talked about, and if they have negative 2 relationship points, they get the bane. At any time during the adventure in this book, a character can end their friendship effective immediately. When they do so, they're reset to 0. It says once an NPC has become a character's friend, they have the option to deepen that, basically romancing the character. The next time a relationship happens with a friend, the character can express a wish for a deeper connection with the NPC. This might be a romantic pairing, a deeper platonic camaraderie, or a sibling-like bond. Before this encounter takes place, talk to the player to ensure a clear understanding. And then there's this thing here that says becoming beloveds. If a player wants a deeper relationship between their characters and a friend, the friend can become the character's beloved if the character has 2 relationship points or more with an NPC. During the next relationship encounter, they can deepen their relationship and become beloveds, in addition to the normal interaction the character encounters bestow. Beloved inspiration, though. When a character has a beloved, the character gains beloved inspiration at the end of each long rest. Beloved inspiration functions like a regular inspiration, as described in the player's handbook, except a character regains a number of uses of beloved inspiration after each long rest equal to the number of beloveds they have, not to exceed a number equal to their proficiency bonus. A character can end a beloved relationship at any time. When that relationship ends, the character no longer provides beloved inspiration to the character. If a character's relationship points with the NPC ever drop below 1, the beloved relationship ends immediately. So it sounds like you can have multiple beloveds equal to your proficiency bonus, if I'm reading that correctly. Except a character regains a number of beloved inspiration after each long rest equal to the number of beloveds they have, not to exceed a number equal to their proficiency bonus. So you can have multiple beloved characters if you so choose. Modules should be placed at a much lower price. They feel like a low-effort attempts at being creative. I agree. I think you should have scalable pricing, and that is one of the benefits, as mentioned, of D&D Beyond, is you can pick and choose what you want. You don't have to buy the entire book. If you want to just buy the race out of Strixhaven, you can just buy the race out of it. Again, who knows what the future holds and the darkest timeline potential we might see, but, well, you know. Do you wish they kept the classless subclasses? I answered this a couple times before, but I was fine with them. I think it needed tweaking, but I was fine with it. Oh, and somebody mentioned, yes. Thank you for the appreciation of my Nerf handband rifle. It's super cool. I really like it. I can't wait to get the Nerf Gallahorn from Destiny. And I might get the Nerf Needler as well from Halo. I'm a huge Nerf nerd, and I always have been. I have hundreds of Nerf guns upstairs. I used to have a whole like arsenal closet in my old house. And I got into a huge Nerf modification scene back in college, where we used to sit there and modify all our Nerf guns and swap out springs and make our own custom darts and things like that. But yeah, there it is. So, that's super cool. It took forever to show up, but finally got it. So, when are we getting a Nerf gun collection video? I don't know. Maybe when I finish getting everything to where I want it to be, and I give you guys like a full MTV Cribs tour of my house. Nerf Immersion. Believe me, I thought about it. That was a thought that it would be a very simple change to make a Nerf gun related channel as well. Nerf Immersion could be a thing. Podcast is definitely a thing too. I mentioned it in a recent video, but it was right at the end. I have 2 channels. There might be even more coming. Who knows? So I have Nerd Immersion, the main channel that's here, and then I also have Nerd Immersion Plays, which is where I upload all of our gameplay content. And have been for a while. Well, Leather Guru, I understand that, but that's not how that works. Kickstarter doesn't work like that. If people have a concept for something and you go and back it, I mean, one, you enter into a risk anytime you back something on Kickstarter. So it's fine if you're never going to back anything on Kickstarter ever again. I get that. Some people have been burnt. I mean, ask the 3D printing community how they were 5 years ago. Everybody got burnt. People were buying Kickstarters for 3D printers, and it just never happened. You're also not, technically beholden to ever receive anything. But yeah, most of the time, people don't have the books ready to go. They need to pay people to write the content for it. That's just how it works. But, to each their own. You could probably, if there was a Nerf-related apocalypse, we'd be in pretty good situation over here. Someone asked if you can make your own NPCs. I didn't see a section. There's no reason. So I know they put a lot of effort into developing the NPCs for this. I don't see why you couldn't make your own NPCs. Doesn't look like it has a specific section on making your own. There's a variety, quite a variety in here. So I don't see rules for it, but I don't see why you couldn't make up your own. Let's see. How good are the new backgrounds and feats? Well, the feats, there's only 2, and the backgrounds are basically tied to them. So, they're okay. Yeah, background feats, similar to a Magic Initiate and sort of like an advanced Magic Initiate, if you will. Can we make a character from the book right now? In what way? Because maybe. I was going to call it quits, but we can definitely attempt that. I've reinvigorated my spark here. But yeah, podcast is definitely something that seems to be more and more real. So we may have the podcasts. I don't know if it'll be done by the end of the year, like at full swing, but it's definitely coming. Because it actually... good friend of mine suggested it, and it makes a lot of sense. So I will likely, when I eventually end up making it, the first episode will probably, as like a trial, will likely go to Patreon first for them to kind of give it a once over, see what they think about it. But know that it should do nothing but help the channel in all aspects. Oh, speak of the devil. Let's make a character and get it... okay, hang on. Let's make a character and get it ready to go into the adventure. Well, yeah, I mean, we could make a character, but the problem is, there's not too much in here that, like, is random. I mean, we still need to pick... I mean, unless you want to build an owl, we could build an owl character, an Owlin, which is the race that's in the book. But, again, you start at level 1. So I'm not saying there's nothing. You would basically pick a college, which is your background, and that would be it. You pick Lorehold, Prismari, Quandrix, Silverquill, or Witherbloom, and then that's your whole thing. You pick your race, you choose your background, and you pick a class, and there's not like a ton of stuff to go into it there, but that's how that works. Say I'm the DM and I'm like, hey, I'm running Strixhaven, make a character, use whatever stat method you want. Okay. This is kind of a mixture, David A. It's more of like, it's kind of like a weird mishmash of all of the things. It's like a campaign setting, an adventure, and a resource book. All right, let's see. Oh, okay. Let's see what I come up with. All right. Well, we're gonna make an Owlin because, unfortunately, if I had D&D Beyond access to this, that would make this way easier. but we're going to just have to do this ethereally. So we're going to make an Owlin. We're going to choose the plus... where I don't know what we're going to do as far as stats go. Let's see. How about an Owlin? Okay, we'll make an Owlin Wizard. Yeah. Yeah? Maybe not. We can get these spells on anything, huh? Okay, hang on. How about... Why don't we just go real weird, okay? We go with an Owlin Aberrant Mind Sorcerer Witherbloom student. Okay, so hear me out on this. Alright? So as an Owlin, we're going to get Dark Vision out to 120 feet. Let me pull up something else for here in the meantime. Sorcerer. Alright. Mostly because I want to play an Aberrant Mind Sorcerer and I haven't had a chance to. Okay. We're going to have free flight. We're going to have free stealth proficiency. We're going to have a free 120 feet of dark vision. Right out the gate for just being an Owlin. Okay? Yeah, here's the thing. There's no reason. You don't have to make things tied to stuff because that's how this works. Like, I know Witherbloom, Aberrant Mind, Witherbloom doesn't make sense in the lore, but it doesn't have to because that's what happens when we try to replicate a magic college in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. Let's see. But if we go Witherbloom, that's going to give us nature and survival and an herbalism kit and a language of our choice. But here's the reason why I'm choosing that. We'll have access to the entire sorcerer spell list. We're going to have all of the sorcerer aberrant mind psionic spells, which is Arms of Hadar, Dissonant Whispers, Calm Emotions, Detect Thoughts, Hunger of Hadar, Sending, Evard's Black Tentacles, Summon Aberration, Rary's Telepathic Bond, Telekinesis. We'll also have telepathic speech as part of being an aberrant mind character. We're also going to get 2 cantrips from either Chill Touch, Druidcraft, or Spare the Dying. I'm going to choose Chill Touch and Druidcraft. We're also going to get 1 first level Druid or Wizard spell. I'm going to choose Shield. So we have Shield automatically learned. And then we can choose to cast the Shield spell with our Sorcerer spell slots if we want. Because we chose Witherbloom Initiate, that's also going to give us access to the following spells automatically learned, not counting against the number of spells we have. Cure Wounds, Inflict Wounds, Lesser Restoration, Wither and Bloom from this book, Revivify, Vampiric Touch, Blight, Death Ward, Anti-Life Shell, and Greater Restoration. So right out the gate, we are a sorcerer with the extra 10 spells we get from being an Aberrant Mind Sorcerer. We now have access to Healing Magic, Resurrection Magic, Condition Cleanse. We have access to this new Necrotic Damage and Heal all in one. We have Death Ward, we have Anti-Life Shell, we have extra cantrips, 2 extra cantrips on top of our 4 sorcerer cantrips at the start. We have Shield automatically learned. We're going to be the sorcerer with the most possible spells available to us. It'll feel like every other class. We'll have actually almost double the amount of spells as a sorcerer. And then we'll just be waiting for spell slots, honestly. And then as we level up here, I mean, we're going to end... The game ends at 10th, or if we're playing in this session, it ends at around 10th level. But I'll also remind you that we have 120 feet of dark vision with no sunlight sensitivity and free flight. We can just fly for free. So that removes the need of a 3rd level spell, Fly. And we can do this from level 1. So again, at level 1... Just level 1 alone. Start there, right? Let's pull up some other things here because people are asking. So, I know it's, like I said, it's wonky. It makes no sense lore-wise, but I'm going to break the game if I'm going to break the game. So let's go ahead and pull up sorcerer spells, okay? We're going to sort this. Figure out how we're going to do this best, okay? So at level 1, our Owlin sorcerer here will have 30 feet of fly speed, 120 feet of dark vision. They will have access to the following cantrips: Mind Sliver, Chill Touch, Druidcraft. They will also have access to, I don't know, why don't we give them Minor Illusion? Throw that in there. It's a solid one to have. Prestidigitation. That's 2. Still get 2 more. Shocking Grasp. So we've got a little melee access there in case someone gets a little close. So that was Chill Touch, Druidcraft, Minor Illusion, Mind Sliver, Shocking Grasp. I'm going to throw Ray of Frost on there. I think that's 4, right? Minor Illusion, Ray of Frost, Prestidigitation, Shocking Grasp, plus Chill Touch and Druidcraft is 6 starting cantrips. We're going to get, as far as being a sorcerer, at level 1 we get, what do we get? 2 spells known. Reminder that as an Aberrant Mind, we normally have 2 spells known, but as Aberrant Mind, we're also going to start with Arms of Hadar, Dissonant Whispers. We're going to have Shield from the Wizard spell list from Witherbloom Initiate. So we're starting at, again, Arms of Hadar, Dissonant Whispers, Shield. We're also going to have Cure Wounds and Inflict Wounds. And then we get 2 sorcerer spells of our choice from the first level sorcerer list. I don't know, we choose Absorb Elements, give ourselves a little more survivability. Could choose Mage Armor if you want to go that route. Magic Missile, really, you know, world's your oyster at that point. And again, yeah, you're going to have Herbalism Kit, Nature Survival, and you're going to have Telepathy, right? The ability to talk to people in your head. As a bonus action, choose a creature within 30 feet. Speak telepathically to them as long as they're within a number of miles equal to your Charisma modifier. And it lasts for a number of minutes equal to your Sorcerer level. As we level up, right? So if we start leveling up in this, we're going to unlock additional spells. Lesser Restoration, Wither and Bloom, Calm Emotions, Detect Thoughts all come online at 3rd level. When we hit 5th level, we'll get Revivify, Vampiric Touch, Hunger of Hadar, and Sending. 4th level, we'll get 7th level, we'll get Blight, Death Ward, Evard's Black Tentacles, and Summon Aberration. And then at 9th level, we'll get Rary's Telepathic Bond, Telekinesis, Anti-Life Shell, Greater Restoration. We'll also be resistant to psychic damage, advantage on Charmed, saving throws against Charmed and Frightened. And any of the spells from the Psionic Sorcery spell list we can cast with sorcery points, removing verbal and somatic components so they can't be counterspelled. And we could also swap out any of the Psionic spell lists with anything from the Divination or Enchantment spell list from the Sorcerer, Warlock, or Wizard list, including adding things like Silvery Barbs, the brand new spell that we talked about that we like. We could add that in. We also would have access to Kinetic Jaunt and Vortex Warp, all from this new book. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense lore-wise, but they would also let us get the Strixhaven Mascot, which we could get the Pest Mascot as Find Familiar. And then that would give us the option to swap with it. And if we were to go look at the Pest Mascot real quick so we can see what it does. Where is it? Pest Mascot here. This is just what I'm coming up with on the spot. There's obviously way better options for this, but if I were to take a little more time and develop it out, we could build a much more min-maxed game-breaking character. Not that that's what you need to do, but that's what I would do, because that's the person that I am. Where is this Pest? I remember, is it right here? The Pest Mascot. Tiny monstrosity. 13 armor class, 22 hit points. It regains 5 hit points at the start of its turn unless it's taken fire damage. At the start of each of its turn, it deals a d4 piercing damage to any creature that is grappling or is grappling it, and it has a bite that does a d4 plus 2 piercing damage. Also, it looks like this, which kind of is aberrant mindy in its design. So, there's a random character. It doesn't really have any rules in here about making your own colleges. You could probably figure out how to do it, but it is, again, very much... It's Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos, not magic school creation, you know what I mean? Like, it's very much for the Magic the Gathering community and folks that want to play in a magical academy. It's not designed... It's not a source book to create your own NPCs, a source book to create your own magical college. Would I have liked that kind of stuff in this book? Yes, absolutely. That would be the kind of things I would look for. I would want... I've said it before, though. We don't have good homebrew mechanical stuff for people to make, like, DM tools. We don't have good ones. They don't really give them that to us. I didn't really have any hopes for people asking who were like, does this hit everything I wanted it to for this book? No, I didn't really have high hopes for this book, but it wasn't like in a negative way. I just didn't really care, honestly. I was more hoped for fizz bands, and that kind of let me down in a couple areas. I like a lot of it. A couple areas let me down. This book I was kind of indifferent to. Again, because I'm not a huge Magic the Gathering guy, so I can't evaluate it from like, did it hit the mark on the Magic side? And like I lamented to before, I don't really have time to run adventures. I have one night a week that I typically get a chance to play D&D, and I would rather play something that I'm writing or I'm designing or creating myself than something somebody else wrote. You guys really want me to build out this character like an actual character sheet once December 7th rolls around, and this is all available in D&D Beyond. I will build out this character and I will post it on social media for everybody. It doesn't... I wouldn't say it really power creeps in this book too much. Like, obviously, the way I made it sound, it's like, oh my god, it's so overpowered. But it's very much setting specific, right? Like, if you're not going to allow your players to take the Strixhaven feats and the Strixhaven backgrounds without playing in a Strixhaven game, then it doesn't change much. The spells, the 5 new spells, are a little powerful, but once again, they are very specific to this world. Will I allow them in my regular game? Absolutely, I will. But it is what it is. Oh, yeah, the 5 dragons? Yeah, we can do that. I think the Witherbloom one's my favorite. I'm just finding myself liking that one, that whole college a lot. So here's Belladros Witherbloom. You guys can see that. Kind of a necrotic angel of death sort of situation. We've got Galazeth Prismari. Very kind of showboaty looking. Okay. Still trying to get to the other ones here. Shadrick's Silver Quill here. Tanazir Quandrix on this side, and Velamaxis Lorehold on that side. I think the look-wise, I think I like the Lorehold one the best. But I think I like the Witherbloom one the best, in like just because I think I've self-identified as Witherbloom, I guess, apparently. Yeah, well, again, this is the problem is, right? They should make a new Strixhaven sheet to make it easier for you. Yeah, so Leonardo here in the chat says WotC tends to give their magic settings a little extra compared to the usual D&D settings, which is true. All right, so all of the Magic the Gathering settings have had a little extra, right? The Ravnica ones had the guild system. There was the piety system of Theros. And then obviously there's the background system here in this book. You do not need to be a spellcaster to take the new feats. We could have built everything we just talked about on a paladin or a fighter, and it would have been just the same. But the downside would have been the expanded spell list wouldn't have been useful to people who don't have spell slots. So you could take the Strixhaven Initiate feat, and you could take the Strixhaven Mascot feat on any class. But the expanded spell list, it's the same thing with, again, I've talked about it before, the Eberron dragon marked, the mark of whatever characters, like the mark of finding human or whatever they are, those dragon marked races in Eberron have that thing where it's like, hey, if you have a spell list, these spells are added to the spell list. Yeah. And also, it might not have been as good because now I'm thinking about it a little more. Are those spells added to their spell list, or are they added to the spell list or automatically prepared? Let's see. If you have the spellcasting or pact magic feature, the spells on the Prismari spells table are added to the spell list. Okay, so not as crazy as I thought. The spells that I mentioned are added to your spell list, not added to your spells known. So they're ones that you have access to if you wish to choose them, not if you... So actually, even though we built this out as a sorcerer, the additional spells that you could get would probably be more beneficial on a prepared caster of some kind, because, you know, if you're something like a sorcerer where your spell slots are hard limited, you know, it'd be better something like a wizard where they could swap things out. But the problem again with the wizard is they still, like, they might be on their spell list, but unless they have them in their spell book, it doesn't count. So maybe something like a bard or a cleric or a druid. So obviously Witherbloom is kind of designed to be more druid-esque, but like a handful of those spells are available to the druid anyway. So adding those, expanding the druid's spell list to add those to it doesn't really help because they already had access to those spells. So the thing you'd want to have is you'd want to have access to these spells on classes that don't normally have them, because that truly expands the spell list, right? So if I were to say be a Witherbloom cleric, well, Cure Wounds, Inflict Wounds, Lesser Restoration, Revivify, Death Ward, and Greater Restoration are all available on the cleric spell list as it stands. So maybe this one would be better on a bard, right? Giving you Cure Wounds, Inflict Wounds. I mean, it would give you Inflict Wounds, Revivify, Vampiric Touch, Blight, Death Ward, Anti-Life Shell. On a bard wouldn't normally have it. But again, there's still spells known. So they would have to choose. So it's tricky, you know, it's really you want to be, or like maybe a paladin, right? Because you might get access to stuff you might not have access to. I don't know. Let's be honest, Lorehold gets access to Spirit Guardians. Giving Spirit Guardians to anybody who doesn't have Spirit Guardians is an instant win, because Spirit Guardians is one of the best spells in the game. So that's Lorehold right there. So you might be okay with that. And Lorehold, yeah. Or Quandrix gives you access to Guidance as a cantrip on anybody who might not have it. Also adds things like Haste to spell lists that don't normally have it, so that could be pretty nutty too. So again, it's, like I said, not as good as I initially thought. It's just adding to the spell list. Again, have not fully read the adventure, but I would give it a shot. I would like to see how it goes. It seems fun, but again, I'm not familiar with the world of Magic the Gathering that much, especially Strixhaven, to be able to comment truly on it. Is it true that there are only like 2 feats and 5 spells? That is 100% accurate. 2 feats and 5 spells. Are you expecting... I'm expecting to be pleasantly surprised with Mordenkainen's Canaans in January. That's probably bad on my part. I should not be anticipating anything positive, because I feel like whenever I start getting hyped about something, I always get let down. That's not necessarily a WotC shot, that's just a general thing. When I start getting like overly speculative, like, oh, well, what if it's this? And it usually never is that. But I expect it to include a lot of the races that we've seen printed elsewhere. You know, things that we have never really seen reprinted. I think like the Aarakocra, I don't believe have ever been reprinted. I expect them to be in the book. Fingers crossed that an updated version of the Kobold will appear in this book, and maybe some new races as well. So I'm hopeful. I don't really care about the updated stat blocks for the monsters, because for a lot of people, I get the draw of it. It's compiling all of the monsters that have been in things like Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, Volo's Guide to Monsters, maybe like in this campaign setting here, or in this adventure here, or whatever. All these loose monsters all compiled into one tome is huge for folks who don't already have all those books, or don't already have access to those creatures on D&D Beyond. I have both of those. I have all of the books. I have everything on D&D Beyond. So a compiled tome doesn't really do anything for me other than convenience of carrying one book if I'm carrying physical books around. What I'm hopeful for is updated races and new races. This would be a wonderful opportunity for Wizards of the Coast to show a little faith and do something like what we talked about, where they could change Magic Initiate to have that one line that says, you can now cast these. You can cast the spell you have from Magic Initiate with any spell slots you have. It would be amazing if they applied that same text to any of the new races that they're reprinting in Mordenkainen's. That says like, you can cast this spell at this cantrip at level 1. When you reach level 3, you can cast this spell, and when you reach level 5, you can cast this spell. You can cast any of these spells with spell slots you have of the appropriate level, whatever it is. That would be huge. Do I think we're going to get that? No. But I could be pleasantly surprised. They seem to be pretty flavorful, the Strixhaven colleges. Yes, exactly. Hope for the best, expect the worst. Leonardo, there might be other stuff sprinkled throughout. They do have a whole section on magic items with the 5 magic or 7 magic items, whatever it is. When D&D Beyond releases it in 2 weeks' time, I'll be able to tell you definitively if there's more magic items than just the 5 or 6 that are in here. There is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 magic items. We covered those already. But once again, they felt comfortable and confident adding pricing guides to the magic items contained within this book, as well as for first level spell scrolls and +1 weapons. So does that mean, and the fact that regardless of whatever the weird tactic was that Minsc and Boo nonsense on the DM's Guild, that book has a bunch of magic item prices in it. Are we getting more comfortable with Wizards of the Coast? Is Wizards of the Coast getting more comfortable stacking or putting on prices to their magic items? I hope so. Could that be something we'll see updated come 2024? That'd be a big move in the right direction if they were to do that and say, here's the actual buying and selling guide for magic items. Again, expect, hope for the best, expect the worst. Believe me, Alex, I am. How do we get more magic items than feats and player options? Yeah, you're right. Well, if you count the Owlin together, I guess they equal each other. No, they're super cheap. Like, okay. So, a +1 magic item, according to Strixhaven, is 300 gold pieces. You take that into account here, folks. If you want, in the world of Strixhaven, if you can find yourself traveling the multiverse to the world of Strixhaven, and you have 300 gold pieces, you can buy a +1 weapon In some campaigns, that might seem absolutely ludicrous, and it might be almost impossible to find a +1 weapon at all. But for 300 gold pieces, you can buy a +1 magic item. +1 weapon, sorry. You can buy a first level spell scroll for 50 gold pieces. You can buy things like the thing that gives you unlimited coffee for 100 gold. You can buy the mascot that gives you advantage on saving throws against being frightened or ending being frightened for 100 gold pieces. And then you can buy the pennant that does nothing other, the pennant that shows off which college you belong to, and glitters, which does nothing except other than do that for 100 gold pieces. And then the 5 books that provide, depending on what college you go to, there's a book for each college, which has a D3 charges that if you make an intelligence, or you make one of 2 skill checks, for example, lore hold is history checks or religion checks, while holding the book, you can expend a charge to add a D4 to that check. And then again, you can choose one first level, if you're holding the primer. When you finish a long rest, for again the lore hold one, you can choose one first level spell from the cleric or wizard spell list. You can cast that chosen spell without a spell slot if you're holding it. And those books, all 3 of those books, or all 5 of those books rather, are 300 gold pieces each. So, yeah. Someone had said at one point that 1 gold piece was roughly $100. I don't know if that ever checked out anywhere. But yeah. But yeah, if you look at the Minsc and Boo's journal of whatever it was, it has magic item prices for at least 1 magic item shop in Baldur's Gate, and that's technically a WotC produced product, so I don't know. It is still funky how it came out, was taken down, was put back up, and still has a thing if you download it now for the first time, that there is a bookmark in there that's literally a bookmark that says, hey, can you please remove this text? We need to expand the author text a little bit. Do I think Monsters of the Multiverse is the precedent for 5.5e Monster Manual, or will the 5.5e Monster Manual take things even further? I think it's going to be... I hope that it's going to be telling. I hope we'll get an idea and we can extrapolate a lot of things based on what we find in that book. It might not be that at all. I don't know. Guess we'll see. This is also a reminder that if you guys are going to PAX Unplugged, I'll be there. And hopefully I'll be in full health by then. I don't see why I wouldn't be, but, the world may never know. But yeah, I have a bunch of swag that I'll be giving out to people. And as it is swag, that means it's free. So I have a big old box of these Nerf Immersion drawstring backpacks here, right? A whole bunch of these guys. I got a whole bunch of these Nerf Immersion mechanical pencils that I'll be giving out. Because we're COVID safe, right? We got Nerf Immersion hand sanitizer keychains. Look at that, right? How about that? Keep everybody safe. Hand sanitizer. And that's not even all of it. Some of the stuff still hasn't arrived. I think I've got bottle openers coming, and then some coffee mugs too. So if you're gonna be at PAX Unplugged, you better find me because I'm gonna have a bunch of stuff, including still got some enamel pins and D6s rolling around too. So a lot of promo swag if you come find me at PAX Unplugged. I mean, realistically, that stuff will just roll over to whatever the next convention is, like PAX East or Gen Con or what have you. But and like I said, there is still, I'll pull up the link while I'm sitting here, but there is still time to enter the Fizban's Treasury of Dragons giveaway. If you guys are interested in winning a copy of Fizban's Treasury of Dragons or a couple other things as well, here's the link for Fizban's. So there's the Fizzbands link. And then again, as soon as I get the copies, 2 extra copies of this that I have in hand from my local game store, I will do a Strixhaven giveaway as well. And yeah, Nerd Immersion dice sets would be cool. The problem is D20s are a lot harder to do than D6s. So like Chessex will like do D6s for me. Whereas like D20s, they don't do. Or I think they would, but I'd have to pay for all 20 faces to be custom, even though 19 of the 20 faces would just be numbers. It's like a weird thing they have. So. But yeah. I think we covered pretty much most of the stuff that people care about. Again, I will be doing full in-depth coverage of this book, kind of talking about what we talked about in further detail once the book is actually out on D&D Beyond. And then, yeah, be on the lookout for the podcast, which will have more stuff. Again, no time frame on that, but super excited to show you. Because I think it's going to be really good. I think everything is going to benefit from the podcast. So, yeah, thank you, Latest. If you guys do want to like the live stream, it does help. Favorite, I'll get, all right, I got one question here about my favorite piece of art so far. So I'll just do a quick flip through. Let's see if I can find my favorite piece of art. Was that it? Oh, I really like this one. It's just like kind of spooky, ethereal, foresty vibes, and I dig that. So, yeah, also check this out, right? 86.3. I'm getting that number up. I want to get that plaque so we can hang it on the wall somewhere over here. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I'd like to say that I'm going to go to bed right now and get some rest, which I should do, but we all know me, so I probably won't do that. But anyway, thank you guys all so much for coming and hanging out, spending your Saturday night with me. You know, hope to get back to doing some more live streams and Q&A stuff soon. But yeah, be sure to let me know your thoughts on Strixhaven Curriculum of Chaos in the comments down below. Or again on the comments on the video after the fact. But I'll see you all next time.